Welcome to WDEX, the Wired Differently Experience. My name's Todd Saylor, and I am the author of the book, The Brand and the Attitude Wired Differently. And my job is to inspire you. My job is to motivate you. My job is to love you. And the show's job is to challenge the status quo, right? To dare you not to be average. And your job is to be, do, and think differently. Today's show is pretty exciting. Iterate. Only two makes in life. And I loved Stretch Armstrong. The show today is going to be based around 6 progress moves. 6 moves that you need to make progress in business and in life. So there's only 2 makes in life. You're going to only be making progress, or you're going to be making excuses. And I don't want you making excuses. I want you making progress. And so before we get there, I got to confess something. I almost blew my entire speech by not making progress this week. I had an opportunity to speak to some Pakistani people over the last several months, and then I just kept finding ways not to do it. I kept making excuses instead of progressing my brand, instead of progressing the message. And every time it came around for me to communicate with them, I found a reason not to do it. And I don't want you to be excuse makers. I mean, this whole country is melding over and finding reasons and problems and excuse for this and not to follow Biden and to love Trump, to hate Trump, to follow Biden. Everything becomes political and we make excuses for the way we're thinking. We make excuses for the way our people act. And stop it. We only want to be making progress. And I stopped making excuses. I got up at 5 a.m. and I said, yes, Nazareth, I will speak at 7 a.m. in Pakistan. The fact that I went the progress route, the fact that I didn't make excuses was amazing. So I did the show. It was great. I learned more scripture. I learned from them, and they were blessed, and they were clapping. And it's important that you understand there's only 2 makes in life. You're either going to make progress or you're going to make excuses. So the number one thing I want to talk to you about is critical work. Critical work requires critical starts. As leaders, we're required to do our MITs first. Most important task. Release yourself of the most important task of the day immediately. My mom made me make my bed every day when I was a little boy, and I'm glad she did that because to this day, I get one thing done before 6 or 7 o'clock every day, and I make the bed. And my wife's very grateful for it because she doesn't like making the bed. I don't like making it, but the bed gets made every day. After that, the day flows. Elon Musk does it, and I will tell you this, that your progress moments are just as important as sending a rocket to the moon or Mars. Your progress moments are just as important as inventing the first electric car. You are the best at the craft you have in the world, and I want you to own that. Elon Musk will tell you the same thing. Your MITs are just as important as his. Now, I want you to understand the importance of what we call a feedback loop. You have people that are giving you feedback with your critical work. Feedback loops are essential, but they can hurt you or help you. Here's where Elon Musk or someone like Elon Musk that's a little bit braver than me in some regards, he will tell you, don't tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you don't like, Chad. Oh, wait, you're already doing that. Chad didn't like my background. Well, and to be honest, Chad was like one of 3 people that said the background was cool, Todd, but it was too much movement. And he's a feedback loop. I took his feedback, which was negative, and I ran it across some other people, and they said they had the same challenge. And I said, you know what? I have the same challenge too. That's a good example of feedback loop. Loop them all. Find people that aren't going to be yes man, and they're going to tell you what they don't like. So once you understand the critical work and the MIT and you got your feedback loop in place, now things are going to start to work into this reasoning process. First principle reasoning. It's rooted more in like physics and logic and physics and geometry and some of the mathematical skill sets that we grew up learning in high school and maybe some of us in college. First principle reasoning is basically the basic assumption that can't be deduced from any other proposition. It's the only sure thing in a complex problem. Every day there's some type of problem or situation or issue that you have to solve. Like for instance, Elon Musk. He went over to Russia and he was gonna buy a rocket ship. But when he got to Russia, what do you think he found? He found rockets. He found one rocket, millions of dollars. He found another rocket, millions of dollars. But after he got done thinking about it, he went into his first principle reasoning mindset. He says, well, why would I buy two rockets, a rocket for 2 million, or certainly not a nuclear rocket? Why would I do that when, hey, and why don't we just build one? Why not make a donut from scratch? Why go buy it from somebody else and ice it and sell it on a truck? I want to stretch your mind in that regards. I want you to bring it all the way back down to the idea of deduced from any other proposition. I want your root thinking. How can I do it differently? Speaking of stretching, the fourth principle I want to talk to you about of moving and progressing is stretch goals. Stretch Armstrong, because now we've stretched ourselves. We've had first principle thinking, and we got all this feedback loops coming back at us. And now I want you to understand that you need to stretch your mind. You need to stretch your goals. I need Stretch Armstrong goals. When I was a little kid, I was given a toy called Stretch Armstrong. Man, I loved Stretch Armstrong. We'd take his arms, we'd take his legs, and we'd just torment this dude. We'd stretch him, but he would always snap back. He was always stretching elastic. And I think about that now when I set goals. Stretch goals are meant for stretching us. Henry Ford said, hey, I'm gonna build a car, and it's gonna be inexpensive, and it's gonna be reliable. And my great-great-great-grandfather Hank said, well, what's wrong with the horse? There was nothing wrong with the horse. But Henry Ford said, I'm going to build a car that's reliable and inexpensive, and that's that. Stretch Armstrong goal. I need stretch goals from you. I need you to go down to the store and see if you can buy a Stretch Armstrong today or tonight or tomorrow and bring it home and put it on the mantle of your fireplace or your lamp or your dresser. I need a Stretch Armstrong in your damn house. I need Stretch Armstrong on your brain all day, all night, and I know that you can do it. It's because once you got the Stretch Armstrong goals, you're already there to what we call the set your mind to growth. These wires that wrap around this motor here is your brain, and those are your thoughts, and that's you setting your mind to growth. Every time you wrap a thought around your brain, you're setting your mind to growth. I want you to take the approach that maybe you're wrong. See, failure is actually an option here. So iterate until you get it right. I feared failure so much that I restricted my ways. I feared failure so much that I wouldn't have stretch goals. It just restricted my success in my life and my leadership capabilities. But it wasn't until I was willing to dare to fail before I started to be successful in businesses. If you're not purposefully setting your mind to growth, where is it being set to? What's on your mind right now that you're trying to make excuses to not do that could actually make you grow in progress? You can do this. The last and most important move for progress is the communication mastery. How you're going to communicate to your wife, your husband, how are you going to communicate to your children? Listen, I've blown that 100 times plus one. I want you to master the communication, work at your communication. And here's a couple things that I think you need to understand for mastering your communication. One, I want you to schedule. Get in there and schedule half-hour increments, schedule hour increments, schedule dinner with your wife, schedule dinner with your husband, schedule your kids' baseball game, schedule your kids' piano lessons. You put it all down. Force yourself to schedule every increment of your life the most possible way you can do. Because here's why. Because once we put it on a schedule, it's a finite. It's carved out, and now you're doing what that says to do. But if you don't put it in a schedule, it leaves that room for wishy-washy. The other thing I want to tell you about communication mastering, asynchronous communication. I want you to master asynchronous communication. Master email. Master texting. Asynchronous communication will help grow you and allow you to do what we call batch tasking. Doing things in communication in batches. Because when we toggle from job to different thoughts, we wear our brain out. We get tired. We get fatigued. I want you to start thinking asynchronously, communicating asynchronously. I want you to start working in batches. And I want you to start taking control of your schedule. I want you to understand that when we come into conclusion with all this, and we think about how important our life is and how important we are to other people, I think about the fact that I almost wimped out, right? And didn't embrace a whole nother country 10 hours away and embrace a culture that was reaching out for some help because I was making excuses. To think that I wasn't using any of these 6 principles I was going to teach you today. Oh man, that's not the Wired Differently way. These 6 progress moves are probably more important when it comes to how you talk to God. Start every morning with God. Critical starts. Make your bed. Talk to God. What better person, what better spirit, what better influence than to loop God into your feedback loop, right? In first principle reasoning, the first principle is God. Use God in your first principle. Use God as your root. Hey, if you're going to set Stretch Armstrong goals, why wouldn't you set them so big that you're going to need God? If you're setting your mind on growth, and your mind on growth is with God involved in that, his principles, his luxuries, his lives, his rewards, his support. I mean, come on, if that's not mind growth set, I don't know what mind growth set is. I mean, I tried not to go off this entire show, but I figured if I got this far, I might just make it, but I can't because it's so logical to me that if I'm going to spend my time on 6 progress moves and not tell you the most important piece on every one of these moves that were perfectly designed for God to be involved, I would be a failure. Thank you for being wired differently. Hey, I love you. I want to inspire you. I want to motivate you. Catch me on my podcast on iTunes right now. This movement, this ministry is going to be a blast. And I don't want you to miss it because I'm not going to let you down because I'm wired differently. And so are you.